This year, the World Defense Military Media Association released an air power ranking that immediately stirred debate within the military community. The US Air Force took the top spot, which was widely accepted, and Russia ranked third, which was also viewed as reasonable. However, when the rankings were revealed showing India's Air Force as sixth and China's Air Force at seventh, Chinese military media quickly responded. The algorithm is unfair. This is using US standards to suppress China's military. We operate as a combined force, and their algorithm doesn't understand the system. The reactions were dramatic. Why were Chinese viewers so upset? Let's take a look at the full ranking and data. Evidently, several issues became apparent. China's Air Force has 3,733 aircraft, more than double India's 1,716, yet ranks behind India. Even more concerning, Russia's Air Force, with 3,677 aircraft, scored significantly higher, with a TVR of 114.2, nearly twice the score of China's Air Force. Meanwhile, the US Marine Corps, with only 1,211 aircraft, ranked fifth, despite a relatively low TVR of 85.3. This contrast led to frustration, particularly with China's placement at seventh, despite having more than 3 times the number of aircraft compared to India. This shows that the frustration from Chinese viewers is understandable. In this case, India is essentially taking the heat. If India weren't ranked sixth, Chinese nationalists would likely be challenging the US Marine Corps with questions like, why does the Marine Corps with just 1,200 aircraft ranked fifth while we have 3,700 and ranked seventh? Why does Russia's 3,600 aircraft score 114 while our 3,700 only scored 63? However, with India ahead, all the attention is focused on them, which shifts the conversation. As a result, Chinese media is aggressively pushing back while India media is celebrating. Meanwhile, WDMMA sits back and enjoys a traffic surge. But is this seventh place really that unfair? Is China's Air Force truly underrepresented? It's not just about losing to India. The entire WDMMA scoring system makes China's Air Force appear weaker. So what is the reason for that? Let's break it down, category by category. Is the Chinese military being unfairly criticized, or does it simply not meet expectations? Fighter jets comparison. You have the numbers, but you fall short in impact. The fighter jet category should have been a strong point for China's Air Force, with a large fleet of modern, powerful aircraft including over 200 J-20s, an estimated 300 to 4,500 J-16s, and more than 1,200 aircraft in total. China has twice as many planes as India. However, despite the impressive numbers, the score didn't reflect this advantage. The WDMMA scoring system doesn't just count the number of aircraft, it assesses their verifiable combat capabilities. It looks at whether aircraft can conduct long-range missions, perform night operations, and most importantly, whether there is concrete evidence to support these claims. China's J-20 and J-16 are often featured in promotional videos showcasing their abilities in dramatic settings like flying over snow-capped mountains, conducting nighttime operations, and refueling mid-air. However, the specifics are kept hidden. The bases these planes operate from, their mission destinations, and the outcome of these missions are all classified. Without publicly available information, WDMMA can't verify China's capabilities, and as a result doesn't assign high marks. In contrast, India, with 540 aircraft including the Su-30 MKI, MiG-29, and Rafale, has fewer planes, but each mission is well documented. Every deployment has footage, explanation, and serial numbers. The Sindh operation against Pakistan was filmed in its entirety. India not only conducts operations but also regularly participates in international exercises, joint training with the US through Red Flag, with France through joint exercises, and high-altitude training with Japan. WDMMA can clearly see every aircraft's activity, training, and missions. While China has many aircraft, it tends to keep them hidden. India's smaller fleet, on the other hand, can demonstrate what each aircraft has accomplished. This is why in the fighter jet category, China's Air Force didn't score as well as expected. Transport aircraft comparison. You have the planes, but they have the data. China's Air Force has a significant number of transport aircraft, about 289 in total. The Y-8, Y-9 series are the mainstay, with over 100 units. The Y-20 China Strategic Transport Aircraft has fewer than 30 in service. The IL-76, an older model, is still in use. While this sounds strong, WDMMA gave China's transport fleet a lower score. The reason being China's transport aircraft are often not visible in global operations. Occasionally, they can be seen flying or landing at an airport, but there's no information on where they're flying from or how much cargo they carry. Many of the videos showing these aircrafts aren't officially released by the military, but come from independent sources, which reduces their credibility. India's Air Force has far fewer transport aircraft, only about 47, but many of these are heavy-duty advanced models. 11 C-17 Globemaster III, the US military's primary strategic transport. 12 C-130J Super Hercules, a key medium transport used in NATO exercises. The rest are older Soviet models like the IL-76 and AN-32, used for domestic support and training. The US-made models are seen as the gold standard in WDMMA's eyes. They have extensive combat records, having participated in peacekeeping, humanitarian, and large-scale troop movements. Every C-17 evacuation and every C-130J exercise is documented clearly on social media and military accounts, ensuring transparency. While China's Y-20 is powerful, it's often kept in bases in Xinjiang and Shanxi, not participating in international exercises or supporting overseas missions. China's transport aircraft fall behind when compared to the more transparent C-17 and C-130. The WDMMA system also places significant weight on force multipliers such as AWACS, airborne warning and control systems, tankers, and electronic warfare planes. These aircraft may be fewer in number, but they are essential for extending the range of fighter jets, enhancing communication, and coordinating operations. India's special mission aircraft are well documented and readily available for evaluation. India's fleet includes 3 IL-76 AWACS, 3 domestic Netra AWACS, and 6 IL-78 tankers. These aircrafts are involved in numerous exercises, including the 2023 Red Flag exercise, where India's tankers accompanied Rafale jets on long-range missions. The 2025 Sindoor operation saw Falcon AWACS guiding Su-30 jets in precision strikes. These missions are documented and publicly available, giving WDMMA clear and verifiable evidence of India's capabilities. China's Air Force, alongside its naval aviation, operates more AWACS than India, with an estimated 50 in total, along with a few Y-20 tankers and around 10 older H-6 tankers. However, these aircraft are often kept in limited service, with only about two-thirds actively deployed in the Air Force. Additionally, China lacks dedicated anti-submarine patrol aircraft, which are only available in its naval aviation fleet. These aircraft, despite their numbers, face significant transparency issues. There is little public information on their missions, training, or operational records. For example, while China's Y-20 tanker is said to be capable of refueling the J-20 fighter, there is no public evidence of its participating in large-scale relocations, long-range support missions, or joint operations with fifth-generation fighters. Without such details being made available, WDMMA cannot assess China's aircraft effectively. In the special mission aircraft category, China's deficit is not in technology but in transparency. By keeping its operations secret, China's aircraft failed to build the credibility needed for high scores in this category. Helicopters and fleet balance. China overemphasizes fighters. India shows balanced strength. When people think about Air Force rankings, they tend to focus on fighter jets and AWACS systems. However, WDMMA argues that the true strength of a modern Air Force lies in the balance of helicopters and overall fleet structure. Modern Air Force don't operate as individual units. They rely on integrated systems working together to achieve their objectives. An Air Force with fighter jets also needs support systems, refueling, transport, and rescue capabilities. These logistic elements enable a force to carry out missions such as troop movements, evacuations, and precision strikes. Helicopters in particular play a central role in supporting these functions. WDMMA uses a metric called fleet balance to assess the overall strength of an air force. The systems evaluates two factors. Is the fleet well-rounded? Does it include a range of aircraft, including fighters, trainers, transport planes, helicopters, and special mission aircraft? Is the fleet proportionally balanced? It's not enough to focus solely on fighters, neglecting the need for trainers, supply aircraft, and heavy lift capabilities. Looking at the data, India's Air Force demonstrates a well-balanced fleet. According to WDMMA's assessment, fighter jets 31.6%, helicopters 29%, trainer aircraft 21.8%, other, which includes transport and special mission, 17.6%. This balance earned India a balanced unit rating. India's Air Force includes heavy fighters like the Su-30 MKI, light fighters such as the Rafale and MiG-29, trainers like the BAE Hawk and the indigenous HTT-40, transport and refueling aircraft, and over 200 helicopters, including 22 Apache AH-64Es equipped with Hellfire missiles designed for tank and bunker strikes. Though smaller in number, these helicopters are highly capable. In contrast, China's Air Force has an impressive number of fighter jets and transport planes, but its helicopter fleet consists of only about 100 aircraft, which contributed to the WDMMA rating of overweight in combat aircraft. Despite having many helicopters, most of China's fleet, such as the Z-10 and Z-19 attack helicopters with 600-plus units, and the Z-8, Z-9, Z-20, and Mi-17 transport helicopters with 300-plus units, belong to the Army Aviation Corps, which prevents them from being counted in China's Air Force ranking. Combat experience. China's Air Force excels in exercises, lacks real combat exposure. WDMMA's fifth rating metric, combat experience, evaluates whether an Air Force has seen real combat. The focus is on actual military engagement, not just theoretical capabilities. Having video footage, reports, and official statements make a significant difference. If there's no evidence, claims of past operations carry little weight. India's Air Force stands out for its combat experience, particularly in the 2025 Sindhur operations, a real cross-border raid targeting Pakistani paramilitary and terrorist camps. Although the operation was small in scale, it was executed with full operational transparency. India's Ministry of Defense released footage, explanation, and even conducted interviews. Major news outlets such as CNN, Reuters, and Al Jazeera provided extensive coverage. WDMMA gave India high rankings for this verifiable, successful, and transparent operation. In contrast, the most recent combat record for China's Air Force dates back to the 1988 South China Sea conflict, a time when many of today's active pilots were not yet born. Since then, nearly all of China's Air Force deployments have been part of exercises or demonstration missions. While China conducts regular drills in the Western Pacific, including around Taiwan, these are not considered real combat. PLA official media often focus on the message, "We were there," or "We are strong," without detailing the specific aircraft used, the mission's objectives, or the threats encountered and how they were dealt with. As a result, China's combat experience rating is almost non-existent. China's Air Force could improve its score by simply releasing more footage from exercises. However, the military has opted for secrecy, limiting its visibility in the open ranking system. WDMMA operates as a scoring platform, not a spy agency. Without the data to back up claims, the Chinese Air Force is penalized for its lack of transparency. The issue is not that China's Air Force is incapable, it's that the details are not made public. China claims to have the second strongest air force in the world and often highlights its ability to win battles. However, there is little publicly available information on aircraft models, fleet size, training exercises, or mission details. China's military strategy relies on creating an air of mystery rather than providing clear, verifiable data. This mystique strategy may deter opponents in war, but it undermines transparency in rankings like WDMMAs. China's strategy isn't to let the world fully understand its strength, but to keep others guessing. It wants to appear strong without revealing exactly how. The goal is for others to only realize its true capabilities in the midst of conflict when they face unfamiliar tactics and equipment. This is known as strategic ambiguity, a tactic China uses effectively. The aim is to hide out of fear, but to maintain an advantage by withholding clear information. The problem is that WDMMA's ranking system doesn't fall for this. It doesn't care whether China could launch a surprise attack. It only looks at whether China can prove its capabilities. So China's 7th place ranking isn't a technical issue, but a cultural one. The problem isn't the quality of the aircraft, but China's reluctance to showcase its full capabilities. It's not India's that's suppressing China, but China's preference for mystery over openness that ultimately lowers its score. India sees through China's defenses, while China struggles to respond. The most surprising outcome of the WDMMA air power ranking controversy wasn't China or the US, it was India. India's Air Force ranks higher than China's. When the ranking was first released, India media shared it calmly with headlines such as India's Air Force ranks higher than China. It was a simple point of pride and there was no immediate uproar. In the comment section, the reactions were mixed. Some applauded, others mocked, but mostly simply noted, "Hey, we're ranked higher, and that's good." However, the real uproar didn't come from India's reaction, but from China's. Chinese military media's response was filled with frustration. They argued that they clearly had a 6-to-1 advantage, asking how India could possibly be stronger. Some even claimed it was the work of Western forces trying to undermine China. The outrage was palpable and the responses were dramatic. Indian observers, after reading those reactions, couldn't help but ask, why is China so upset? For years, India had often felt overlooked by China, as China would focus on Taiwan and its rivalry with the US, while largely ignoring India. To China, India was primarily seen as a border issue, not a serious strategic competitor. But this time, the ranking controversy made many in India feel like that they had finally caught China's attention, as a response from Chinese media seemed unusually emotional. The backlash from Chinese media, along with extensive rebuttals and long technical explanations, made many in India think China really does see us as a threat. For a long time, many Indians respected China, even though they criticized it publicly. Deep down, they understood where the differences lay in the economy, infrastructure, technology, and military power. India had yet to catch up in these areas, but this incident shifted that perception. How could a country that claims to be strong react so dramatically over a ranking? If the US had been ranked lower, they wouldn't even bother responding. The more China emphasizes a 6-to-1 advantage, the more it sounds like they're just reassuring themselves. As a result, social media was filled with sarcastic memes. For example, a picture of the J-20 fighter jet with the caption, "World's number one, except on the ranking list." What began as a serious military ranking debate turned into a source of amusement for many in India. For the Indian government, this response was an unexpected gift. Prime Minister Modi had long tried to position India as the voice of the South, the leader of Asia, and China's rival. However, the gap in power had made such claims hard to take seriously. But the WDMMA ranking controversy provided India with some international validation, as the Indian Defense Minister subtly referenced in a recent speech. India's Air Force modernization has drawn significant attention from our northern neighbor. Though the ranking itself wasn't directly mentioned, the comment made it clear that India had successfully gotten China's attention. However, some defense analysts in India remained cautious. They pointed out that this wasn't simply about pride or ego. It was a systemic issue of China's inability to handle defeat, even symbolically. Ajay Shukla, a columnist for Business Standards, has argued that if a government struggles with symbolic setbacks, it raises concerns about how it would behave in a real conflict. He advised Indian readers not to be swayed by China's emotional outburst, explaining that a regime unable to accept defeat is often the most unpredictable and irrational. In the end, the true winners of this controversy were not India, ranked 6th, nor China, ranked 7th. It was the international observers, the US, Japan, Australia, and even ASEAN countries, who saw the same thing. A supposedly powerful authoritarian regime reacting emotionally with widespread public defense, all triggered by an entertainment-based ranking. This isn't about military strength, it's about confidence. It's not a question of technology, it's about the fear of being exposed. WDMMA didn't fire a single shot, but it hit at China's most sensitive spot, how the world perceives it.